You're about to see the history of the greatest race in World of Warcraft, and my god, I hope she won't talk about how Blizzard absolutely decimated it.
Orcs put the war in Warcraft. They
Oh!
are the franchise's iconic poster children that not only helped Warcraft establish its unique identity, but they also gave a brand new perspective on fantasy orcs.
She
They went
knows.
beyond the wider Tolkien-esque understanding of an orc as these wretched, abominable creatures whose only purpose is to serve under darkness and unequivocal evil, to
To be fair, they are elves turned corrupt, so I mean, it is kind of different on a very, very fundamental level. They can do anything except corrupt and destroy. So Tolkien version of orcs, which by the way, I'm pretty sure, like 99% certain, and feel free to correct me on that Tolkien was the one who invented orcs. I don't think anyone invented them before him. So they are fundamentally different, but they used as a baseline for every single writer since then.
an alien race with their own societies, traditions, and history. They have consistently been central figures in the plot as they were introduced through the RTS games, and eventually in the MMO World of Warcraft. Their prevalence in the plot was not the only thing that contributed to their icon status. It was also their design. Green, formidable, battle-hardened creatures that came with an easily recognizable aesthetic which communicates their culture and special traits that set them apart not only from other races of Azeroth, but from all fantasy orcs. Today we're going to be diving into the aesthetic history of the orcs or the orc design, their origins, evolution, and how a mostly consistent design gave new life and meaning to the concept of fantasy orcs. Before we get started, hi, my name is Angelica, and as an orc main in Warcraft 3, I am
Based. Based. Holy shit. I didn't. Okay. Okay. Call me primitive. I did not think she was a based Gigached orc main. My god. She was always part of the family. Now everything finally clicks for me. God bless. Mad respect. For the Horde, exactly. Makugora.
contractually obligated to make this video. It's in the TOS, look it up. Now the first thing that must be addressed in this video is the very important question of why are they green? The race of orcs, as made popular and defined by Tolkien, were
Some fell
sallow-skinned,
magic.
meaning dull, lacking a healthy color, something unnaturally gray, yellowish, or brown. Warcraft orcs instead were more influenced by Warhammer orcs, the franchise where green-skinned orcs originated. Now, we could look as far back as the 1980s.
The best race in Warhammer 2, by the way. I mean, imagine just punching the hell out of someone. You have all of this cool technology, all of the cool magic the other races are using, and orcs are literally like, wah, bam, just smacks the hell out of you. How cool is that? Maybe just taking a bunch of scraps, huddle them up all together, believing it works, and it actually works. It turns into a giant mecha. Yeah, it's insane, man. Like, Warhammer games are always, for some reason, just so unfortunately bad. But whenever they're good, brother, they're good.
Three Dungeons and Dragons cartoon series where these orcs
Best
that
race
I
in
would have
Warhammer
never
are
identified
humans?
as orcs were also green.
You're
But
still
in
young,
the later
aren't you?
mainstream, and as something that really ended up sticking with fans of fantasy, Warhammer and the tabletop games were the first majorly influential instance of green orcs. But Warcraft is where they really gained their icon status. Originally, they were not green, but a reddish-brown color. Their skin turned green after exposure to fel magic. So that was the choice that the writers made to justify the green skin color. It's not easy being green, but they do a damn good job of it. Now, to really dive into their appearance, we can look at the first Warcraft game ever released, Orcs and Humans. This was the first installment in the Warcraft RTS trilogy. Even just by looking at the cover of this game, we get some visual context as to the core aesthetic that was already established for the orc race. A creature-like humanoid with green skin, horns, which is something that they only seem to have had back then, and warpaint. It's a very sharp and brutal look with
Oh, damn,
the
I didn't
horns
even
that
pay
come from the
attention to
helmet,
that.
also the animal fur. They are armored, which then suggests some intelligence. It isn't the case that they're like what we know with more modern Warcraft ogre depictions who just wear a loincloth and say, "Me smash little night elf." There's a level of sophistication
Hey, there's nothing bad about that. I love the ogres. All they do is dance and kill people. Like, that's kind of cool.
In there. They're aware of their non-human appearance
And do some
they
shenaniganry.
use war paint to amplify their formidable appearance and play into the fear that humans would experience upon meeting them in battle. We get a better look at them through cinematics and mission briefings where they are actually well armored. They wear chainmail, bracers, and even some colored details with, again, animal fur. It isn't anything too ornate, but it isn't just pieces of metal strung together either. Note that the spike details were already very much a part of their core design. Their hair consisted of mainly being bald and having a ponytail. This is also kind of an iconic and defining element of their overall look, as well as piercings that can also be seen here. In general, they do incorporate skulls, horns, and spikes to their look for this more sinister appearance. We can see how this is very consistent even in the unit design. Despite obvious graphical limitations, they were still able to masterfully get across this particular aesthetic. The red eyes, the green skin, the armor, and spikes. Some of the unit designs, like the Warlock and the Necrolite, helped us to better understand Warcraft orc culture, the aesthetics associated with their spirituality and rituals, and the sort of darkness that did live in these concepts. We also get a look at female orcs in this game. Through their units, we get to see Garona and Griselda. Just from their icons, I would say that Garona has a more human appearance to her, probably because she is half orc, half Draenei.
What? I don't see any of that. I don't know, man. All I see is some pixels. Some pixels that resemble something. This is like something you see at the eye, like at eye exam whenever you want to purchase some new glasses. And this is when you need help.
And Griselda seems to have that more creature, goblin-like appearance to her. What's very interesting here is that despite the race of orcs being overall very brutal and mostly beast-like, the female orcs were shown as very feminine, with closer resemblance to humans. Particularly Garona with her face seems to have a more rounded human appearance, especially when compared to the others. But additionally, we also get a look at some art that was created for the Orcs and Humans manual, where she does have orc features with the tusks and the ears.
Wait, hold?
But other than that, she's very tall and slender.
Some parts are missing.
Kind of like an elf, and she looks really beautiful. Her hair in particular is stunning, but this isn't an aesthetic that they ended up sticking with, and the identity for female orcs was better established much later on in the series. Another very key orc type that we learn about here are the lowly orc peons. This gives us an idea of the diversity that exists amongst the orcs physically, from the hardest and toughest of warriors to these chubby little childlike worker bees. More on them later. The manual that I mentioned earlier with Garona's artwork actually features a lot of really interesting sketches, including some from Samwise Didier, who was the brilliant mind responsible for a lot of Warcraft's very unique and special artwork, from which its identity was born. Another element of note are their structures. If with the humans...
I think the problem with orcs is that they became more human. But to be fair, it's not unique to orcs. The entire Disneyfication of World of Warcraft has humanized every single race. Right now, I think Blood Elves and Elves in general suffer the most from it. Elves are nearly indistinguishable from humans. They're just humans with pointy ears and eyebrows at this point. And I think orcs are going through the exact same things. Even Worgen have been past that, which is just insane. And that's why people don't like World of Warcraft anymore, really. Like retail, obviously. And that's why they can't get themselves immersed. Everyone looks human. Everyone look like a Disneyfied version of themselves just to seem less scary to children. There's no distinct sharp features anymore. Like literally, you would never have that. You would never have this in today World of Warcraft. And that's a major issue.
Responsible for a lot of Warcraft's very unique and special artwork. Humans, we saw this typical medieval high fantasy castle aesthetic. Then the orcs were in a more primitive and savage setting that included a lot of crude stone or clay structures, skulls, and areas that again...
I mean, why shape rock like a castle when you can shape rock like a skull? What's more what instills more fear in your enemy's hearts? It's just like a giant castle, like, ooh, so pretty, or like skull. Like, that's dope, dude. Like, no, orcs, they seem stupid, but they're so advanced. It's crazy.
And gave visual context about their rituals and traditions. For example, like the temple. It was a very clear aesthetic divide where the humans had Stormwind, this very big, beautiful, sophisticated castle, and the orcs had Black Rock, a literal black rock with a door. If you look at any of the orc
Easy.
artwork that is present in this manual, you'll see that
Easy
it
to
is very
understand.
in line with how the actual game looks. Now, maybe not graphic-wise, but there are no gaps, or there really isn't any disconnect between these ideas. Obviously, it's going to look different, but it just gives you the same essence and the same feeling. Now we can move on and explore the next game in the RTS series, Warcraft 2: Tides of Darkness. They are actually less armored here than they were in the previous games. First of all, we can see that they are absolutely jacked. But now with the decreased armor, we're also getting a look at a race that has enough brute strength to not have to rely on all of the steel that is worn by the humans. Their bodies are their armor. We're seeing a lot of the same components that were already established as part of their aesthetic in the first game: the spikes, the horns, the animal fur. Consistency really was key here. In terms of the actual unit design in the game, Warcraft 2 saw a lot of other
looks
races
way
introduced
better.
and siding with the orcs, like the trolls and goblins, who were also very green. The main orcs to look at for aesthetics are the grunts, the heroes, and of course the peons, who continue to be a pathetic, lowly form of orc that are used for slave labor. Apparently the only thing that they're good for: harvesting lumber, mining gold, and building.
No, now they're like planting flamingos at the ground, and they're helping you build a house. Apparently that's what they do now. That's their purpose.
Grunts carry the most iconic parts of the orc
Yeah, aren't trolls blue, not green? This is like Warcraft 2, so I guess things were different, but I don't think like all trolls are blue. Like not all of them are.
aesthetic, something that is true throughout
Yeah.
the Warcraft series and not just in the RTS.
Forest
with
Troll
all
is
of
the
components
OG,
that we
I
saw
guess.
from the cinematic
I never played
depictions.
Warcraft
Note
2.
that red
I
is
just
a
played
consistent
3.
color that makes up a part of the orc's general look. The darker magic side to the orcs is also shown here, with what was then known as Death Knight but is now closer to our understanding of warlocks. Grom Hellscream, who shares the same look as the grunts, has a unique portrait with blood dripping from his mouth. Then Kargath Bladefist, a recolor of the grunt, has a black eye patch. Gul'dan and Terran Gorefiend further carry that dark magic
Terran
aesthetic
Gorefiend.
of the orcs, really like
That's
the
a name I haven't
Necrolites
heard
and
in
the Warlocks
ages.
from the first game. But aside from their in-game depictions, something that was really significant in aiding our understanding of the general aesthetic and tone of the orcs in Warcraft was the Art from the Tides of Darkness manual. This, as some of you guys have described it, is very heavy metal. Brutal, vicious,
Insane. This is what we lost. Never let Blizzard forget what they took from us. Look at that, dude, that was insane. What was the last one? Look how crazy that is. This is what constitutes class identity. This is what brings class fantasy into life. Like this. It's so distinguishable from the rest. It's so good. They used to be savage, brother. They used to be manly. You used to look at orcs and be like, damn, they are barbaric, ruthless. And that was so good.
brutal, vicious,
That was like peak male
merciless.
fantasy.
Utterly savage depictions that drive home just how intense the sacking of Stormwind must have been.
Damn.
How absolutely terrifying and formidable was the presence of the orcs in Azeroth, and the extent of the corruption that led them to this war. A
Yeah.
lot of this is
And by the way, all of these things are super important because they add way more gravity and tone to the entire situation. Just like she said a couple of seconds ago, you understand that the ransacking of Stormwind is 10 times worse than what it really was because you're seeing these depictions. So you understand that the gravity of war is brutal. And you really, really understand why humans hate the orcs, like have such an everlasting hate for them. And they don't trust them. Well, in retail, if you play, let's take BFA, right? Which is supposed to be the biggest war between the Alliance and the Horde. Nobody really understands why they're fighting. It doesn't really make sense. It's like one side screams for the Horde, one side screams for the Alliance, and nobody really understands why they hate each other. Definitely not new players. Older players can kind of look at that and be, okay, you know, there's this, you know, ancient history. But new players would never understand it. Like, why this crying blonde boy is constantly yapping and doing priest shenaniganry, and this Yaslay queen on the other side try to hijack the Horde. It doesn't make any sense to them. To be fair, it didn't make any sense to me, and I guess that's why I quitted during BFA. It's so weird. It's so weird and contrived in so many ways.
Chris Metzen's art, and it is a window into that original barbaric vision of Warcraft orcs. There can be no doubt with regards to intent here,
Oh, shit.
but while ferocious, it is oddly
Tetsui, thank you for the follow.
hyper-sentient in a way that we haven't seen with
Bro, I literally thought this head was his, and I was like, why is he holding his head sideways? And then I, like, looked left. Holy shit.
Tolkien's orcs.
I didn't even
example.
remember that.
Tolkien's orcs seem like they are mindless, savage beings whose only purpose was to serve that darker, greater purpose, possibly on the level of even peons from Warcraft. But these are strategic, calculating warlords who have a kind of a look about them that doesn't only inspire fear in just how savage they are, but also how extremely capable they appear in maneuvering at war. These are the soul of Warcraft orcs, an essence that does eventually dwindle, but it is present throughout much of Warcraft history beyond Warcraft 2. In buildings, we see an expanded look at their overall aesthetic, keeping to the same kind of crude, muddy buildings that we did see in the first game.
Wow, they added some duct tape. Holy, that's crazy. You see? I told you, listen, you guys laughed at the orcs at first. Bro, they're evolving so fast. Maybe later they can add some bubblegum. That's crazy. Look how good their buildings are. I mean, impeccable. Truly.
But it is more stylized now. We can observe more of their culture in how it isn't just a rock on top of a rock to make a functional structure and job done, but there is a design that reflects their rituals and traditions to many of these structures. It already forms an architectural style around the orcs that is easily recognizable and makes up a part of their overall identity. Now, before we get to Warcraft 3, a game that was in many ways defining for not just the orcs' overall aesthetic, but all of Warcraft,
everything.
There is another game that we have to look at. The Warcraft adventure
point and
game,
click?
Lord of the Clans.
Oh my god.
This was a point-and-click adventure game.
Yes, dude, it was never released and I'm dying to play it. As a kid, I played so many point-and-click adventures. Unfortunately, is something lost to the ages. Nobody's bothering making them anymore. And it's, like, why? They were so much fun. I wouldn't mind playing a point-and-click adventure for World of Warcraft, or any game with good story for that matter, today. If you have good graphics, if you have all of that stuff, you can definitely pull this off easy, and I just miss those times, man. Like, you got to chill Friday night on your chair or sofa or whatever and just play the hell out of these games. I have so many good memories from those. It's crazy good. Anytime I love your vids on YouTube, Sarah Strange, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Apple, will you play Lords of the Fallen on hard mode? I'm gonna play it after watching this video. And yes, I'm gonna play it on the highest difficulty.
Never released. And the reason for this gem never seeing the light of day officially was because it wasn't finished. It received a ton of hype and promotion and promised to tell the epic tale of Thrall after his escape from Durnhold Keep, when he went on to unite the orc clans and move away from the dark demonic magic back to their shamanistic traditions that they upheld in Draenor.
They gotta release it.
Corruption.
They gotta release
Reject demon slop, embrace shaman tradition. This would have been an insane game, and it definitely deserves to be referenced in our modern day a lot more than it is, as even though it is unfinished, a chunk of it is done, and you can play it for yourself by getting the custom packaged installer from the Collection Chamber website, or just by getting the leaked build directly from the Internet Archive. The reason that the game was never finished or released was because it, quote, did not meet Blizzard's high standards. Can you imagine? Really?
Yeah.
No.
To be fair, the entire lore from that... Oh, that's a nasty pause. Sorry for that. I didn't want to do it early like that. But to be fair, most of the story that has been introduced in this point-and-click adventure has been retconned. So even if Blizzard would re-release it, or like release it officially, they have to build it from the ground up. They have to make it from scratch, and I don't think Blizzard like really wants to do that. Because the entire... Like, Nefarian was smoking a shisha there. He was like literally doing that. I'm not even joking. Go watch the entire gameplay. I've watched it. It's crazy. Or was it like Deathwing? I don't remember if it was Deathwing or Nefarian. It was stupid as hell. Okay, I'm pretty sure it was Nefarian though.
We know now my disappointment is immeasurable, but I could go on about that forever. Anyway, it did have a very cartoony art style that matched similar games in this genre of the time, but at the same time it was so unapologetically Warcraft, and even looking at it now, I feel that it is responsible for establishing a lot of the aesthetic that ended up carrying over into World of Warcraft even. Within this art style, they managed to capture a gritty Azeroth through the eyes of young Thrall. It is all so incredibly stylized, and it gives us a look at the orcs that are now without the demonic strength that allowed them to defeat the humans in the war prior.
And like, you can actually feel the dark fantasy of it too. Like, look at this. It's just a barren wasteland, and they're all struggling to survive. They're missing limbs. For some reason, all of them missing the exact same arm, but I guess that's kind of a weird thing. Maybe it's an orc tradition, who knows? It's so gritty. Whenever you see something like that, it truly helps immerse you inside of the game. You understand why they're doing what they're doing. They're looking for a home. The orcs want to live as well. Now, they did do it at the expense of other races, but they want to live as well.
They've become weakened, alcoholics, scattered tribes that are displaced and have no real direction. They were broken down, placed in settlements or camps, and divided across the land. Thrall himself embodies a lot of what was already established for the orc aesthetic, with that gold earring and ponytail, but the clothes that he
Why is
wears
that guy
are
just sitting
more
there?
human because he was raised by humans and held by them in their society. The rest of the orcs that you can encounter can be found either wearing rags or the limited armor, spiked shoulder pads, loincloths.
Oh,
it's
damn.
a very familiar look for them, right down to the hairstyles, which they did kind of expand on in this game. We even get glimpses into their clan identity,
Dabu.
cultural aesthetics with the animal pelts, robes, and various other details. Fun fact and a little sidetrack, this was the first game that had a proper, prominent feature for the gnomes, besides Tides of Darkness. In Tides of Darkness, they don't really have a full physical appearance, but they do exist in concept and create flying machines. Their identity as inventors and engineers is further explored in the adventure game. I think that this game is solid proof that Warcraft can have that more cartoony style, maybe for something like
Can we retcon gnomes? Can we make it so they never existed in the first place? That would be kind of dope. I'm not gonna lie, but to be fair, there are some great gnomes out there, I guess.
animation and
Not
still
Chromie,
keep
though.
to its gritty roots without feeling like immature fantasy. This style of animation is obviously very different from all of the other Warcraft games, and yet it perfectly gets across the orcish identity in a way that the newest and latest models don't. But more on that later. And now we get to the masterpiece that is Warcraft 3. Orcs are,
Yes.
in many ways, the face of Warcraft 3. Even the original desktop icon for Reign of Chaos was Thrall. Warcraft 3 expanded on the overall orc aesthetic, bringing back all of the elements that we saw in the previous RTS games and adding more to further drive that shaman culture, as well as the different identities of the orc clans. Thrall himself is an armored shaman or farseer. His armor is quite different from what we saw previously for orcs. It's a great deal more sophisticated, ornate. To fans of the previous games, caster Shaman Thrall was actually a bit of a surprise, and they instead expected a fearsome warrior. But Thrall is the character that defined a new side to the orcs that wasn't previously explored anywhere else in fantasy. He was a wise, calm leader who led the Horde away from Lordaeron when the plague spread. He couldn't just be a vicious, brutal gladiator like Grom. He had to exercise good judgment.
I was about to say that, and she hit the nail right on the head there. Thrall working alongside Grom in juxtaposition, it was such a good parallel to each other. Like, there were such good parallels to each other, because you constantly looked at how both of them lead and how both of them take actions. And while Grom was more straightforward and aggressive, Thrall was more cool, calm, and collected. And that was such a great thing to see, because they both did things wrong, but they both did things right. You know, the infamous "I can wait no longer" from Grom, it was so good. Dude just got so pissed. He started decimating everyone and disturbed the peace. There was supposed to be like a peace treaty with the Alliance. Grom looked at this, went like, nah. And that's it. It was so good. Like, it was so good. And obviously, it led to Grom being redeemed at the end. He thought he doomed the entire orc race, and Thrall just yelled that he saved everyone, and unfortunately, he died. We all know how Warcraft ends, right? It was just so good to see that, man. Blizzard truly knew how to write a good story back in the day. It's crazy. Gnomes can go straight to Crocolisk Maw. We need a Gnome Extinction expansion? Brother. Man, you guys, you've learned well. I couldn't be more proud of you.
Be sensible.
By the way, do you know what's the difference between a good gnome and an evil gnome? Do you know what the difference is? I've just, a quick little question, right? a quick little sidetrack. You know what is the difference between an evil gnome and a good gnome? Like, do you know that? Or, let's see if you know. Let's see if you know. I want to see some answers about this. This is important. This would be the final question. You know, good gnome is one that not breeding. Well, there's a different answer. There is no difference. The evil is alive. The the difference is they're both the same. They're all evil.
About his movements, and that made him the best leader for the Horde. He still looks like a warrior despite being a shaman, but the Farseer equivalent orc has a much more traditionally shamanistic look to him, wearing a hood and robes, and wielding a staff instead of a hammer. Grom, the Grunts, Raiders, and Kodo Riders are very much like the orcs that existed since Warcraft's conception. They take all of the components that made them recognizable through the franchise and made it work for easily recognizable unit types in the RTS. It's that same sort of spiky aesthetic, minimal clothing, animal fur, all of that sort of thing. Now, since Thrall had his people turn away from dark, demonic magic, we see the orcs make a return aesthetically to their shaman culture. They have the animal pelt armor and helmets with the long robes, and they create an aesthetic that actually stays with Warcraft forever. The Blade Master also has a notable and interesting aesthetic.
Oh my god, I can still hear his voice lines. I obey, like every single time, dude. It's crazy. I don't know why these units in particular. I don't remember any of the rest except for peons. Obviously, everyone remembers those, but it's just this guy. This guy.
Aesthetic representing the Burning Blade clan. They have
I
a very
got such
specific
a
look to
massive
them that does set them
flashback
apart
there.
from what was already established for the orcs previously. First of all, the very noticeable monk and prayer style beads around the neck. Then the sandals. With some of the names that can be given to the Blade Master hero, like Samuro, Tojara, Yojura, there is a clear East Asian influence there that we really hadn't seen for the orcs prior to this. I think the orcs had definite Mongol or Central Asian influence based on the look of some of their armor, their clan-based societies with the warlords, and of course how their faction ended up being named the Horde. But the East Asian influence for a clan of more disciplined warriors was a very interesting thing to observe. Peons reached their absolute...
If Blizzard would take the orcs one step into the east, direction influence, they're gonna be weebs. But get ready for it. We haven't reached that level yet.
Peak beta male form in Warcraft 3. Not only their general look, but the vest and the little shorts that leave their legs all exposed, their facial expressions, their voices. They look like they're constantly about to cry. He's on the verge of tears. Him definitely not that kind of orc. They're the most fragile looking worker unit out of all of the other worker units. The human peasants can become militia and then they're quite scary, trust me. The wisps are these otherworldly beings that can detonate. The acolytes are all mysterious and scary. And then these guys are just little wimps. They have to jump into a spiky little burrow to be of any value. In combat, that is. Now, the buildings in Warcraft 3 is where the orc identity is even further explored. Quite in line with the previous RTS, we do have some brutal looking structures, very stylized in a kind of a tribal way, definitely some decorative elements to get their culture across beyond just the functional aspect. A lot of spikes everywhere. A lot of colored cloth or leather elements and other things that...
I mean, spikes are good. Pointy. Equal, you don't come near me. That's good. That again, they're evolving.
Remind us of their spirituality and traditions.
Pointy good.
Now, one other thing to note
Round
here is
bad.
that not all orcs are green. Now, this will eventually be more relevant when we move on to talk about the MMO, but in Warcraft 3, we do get a look at the Warsong clan as they turn red after drinking the demon blood of Manaroth in order to gain its power. Their eyes become yellow and their skin a bright red. As a side note, this is one of my favorite parts of the orc campaign. The demon-corrupted orc units were insanely strong, and it was so cool to get to play around with their dark magic side. The orcs, as they appear in cinematics in Warcraft 3, are very much themselves, and it's so amazing how they managed to get across everything that was important about their identity, both in-game and in these higher quality cinematics. This was the early foundation that I think really influenced the look that we later see in the MMO. As for additional art that came with Warcraft 3, we continue to see that raw vision that Metzen introduced with his own artwork. A deeply vicious, savage, and battle-hardened orc aesthetic that made them such a formidable force for the entirety of the series. And now we come to World of Warcraft. This is where the Warcraft orc lived comfortably as one of the best portrayals of their race across all of fantasy. We weren't in an RTS anymore, and we got to really appreciate their aesthetic, buildings, and their home as if we were really there. The orc brutality and ferocity.
And imagine how crazy it was for people back in the day to experience this too. I mean, I really wish I wasn't a kid that was reliant on his parents to buy him stuff, so they never bought me World of Warcraft, unfortunately, when it was actually, real and alive, and not like today when they re-release the same thing over and over again. Because I got to miss on one of the best experiences in video game history. Imagine people that played Warcraft 3 and watched those buildings from like the top to down view. And now they're finally get to go inside of them. That feeling must have been crazy good.
Wasn't abandoned, and these ideas continued into the MMO, even if they did feel a little bit further away now, since the game doesn't feature fighting and war in the same way that an RTS would. There's a lot more calm, exploration, conversation, a look at a generally peaceful life, and a more homogenized look as a result of them moving into the MMO genre. Starting from the cover art for the more rare, or supposedly more rare, physical copy of Vanilla World of Warcraft, the piercings, the tusks, the fierce, sharp look, the green skin, and black hair. This is that exact perfect Warcraft orc look that we had come to know through the previous games. The Seasons of War trailer, which is the first one that plays when you launch Vanilla WoW, shows us this insane, completely jacked, beast-like orc with a club. He's not really wearing any armor, but a loincloth and some chains.
He doesn't need it.
He roars like a beast. What an insane, intense introduction. A callback to the fearsome and savage orcs that invaded Azeroth way back when. And then we get to character creation. We've talked about this before in the context of an MMO setting where certain things do have to get pulled back or toned down in order to make them work in an MMO. There's also the issue of graphical limitations and whatnot. They do seem a lot safer, even though they have their rough-looking facial expressions. But overall, this is the exact look for the orcs that, in my opinion, just works best. This was as close as they probably could have gotten, and honestly, I do like them. I have a real soft spot for the original orcs as they were, like from Vanilla World of Warcraft up to before they changed them in Draenor. They're great to look at, they looked really good in armor, and their customization options were cool. They did include everything like the piercings, hair, and even facial hair, which we didn't see much of before this point, but I do think it really suits them. No war paint.
It does?
However, unfortunately. I think that the peak depiction of Warcraft orcs is actually the orc grunts that are everywhere in Durotar and Orgrimmar. The reason why I like them best is because they incorporate everything about the orcs that was introduced in the RTS games, and it's a great look into their ideal World of Warcraft form. Like I said, we are in an MMO setting here, and a lot of things are more homogenized, like even the clothing that most other NPCs wear, and indeed what your own character wears as you level, it doesn't really match that same aesthetic. You don't ever really end up looking like this, at least not in vanilla, but it's nice to have them around as representation of the main aesthetic and cultural identity of the orcs. Thrall at this point looked pretty much like his Warcraft 3 self. He is a little less fearsome, perhaps, than that mighty war chief that he was in Warcraft 3.
Yeah, he has
I think maybe
pupils
it's the
now.
fact that he was just a regular orc model at this point, and that sort of made him feel less intimidating. Now, in Vanilla WoW, we see...
Actually, it made him feel relatable. In my opinion, whenever I play classic World of Warcraft and I go to, like, take a quest from him, I feel like he's one of us. That's good. I don't think it's a bad thing, really. Maybe he's less distinct, but you can look at it from, like, the other perspective. He looks like your leader. He looks like he actually is one of you. And that's a good thing in my eyes, but maybe that's just a me feeling.
Non-green orcs. For example, they can be found in the Red Ridge Mountains. Their skin is dark, almost charred. They come from the Blackrock clan. They can be found in several locations across the world, some even with war paint. The Blackrock orcs are the ones that led the charge in the First and Second Wars, and after their defeat, they became fewer in number and more scattered, but not completely wiped from the world. They later began to rebuild and pose a bigger, more immediate threat to the Alliance, as their main base was in the Burning Steppes in Blackrock Spire, the neighboring zone to Elwyn Forest. World of Warcraft also established female orcs with their unique and special Warcraft identity. Here, they were given a very different body type, less slender and elf-like, and in my opinion, more fitting for the race of orcs. Their
Nice.
hair
Most handsome female orc, by the way.
Was perhaps not as luscious, but it could still be long, and
Sorry, more
there
gorgeous.
is a focus on things like hair jewelry and piercings that make up their whole aesthetic. The home of the orcs and their capital city in Azeroth, Orgrimmar, is full of familiar structures that we got to know from Warcraft 3, but on a bigger scale where we can actually see inside. The exterior and interiors are humble.
Rule
crude,
34.
and yet
Nah, I can
somehow
think.
kinda
I can
cozy.
think we.
There are
Listen,
no
I think we can
luxuries,
skip
just
that one.
basic
Okay.
necessities and a focus on
It's fine.
defenses where possible. Red is certainly a dominating color and one that is used as a kind of a representation of the Horde as we see it on the sigil banners, rooftops, and throughout their structures. Also, the spikes. You cannot go without the spikes. Now in
Yes.
Outland, in TBC, we get to see the red spell-corrupted orcs. Some
They
have
were
spikes
so
growing
cool.
out of their body. Their
Bro, with the blade for hands, that shit was dope.
appearance was overall more sinister than that of regular green orcs. They had longer
They were
tusks
so cool.
and glowing purple eyes. But at the same time, we also saw the Maghar orcs. The Maghar orcs are the ones that kept their original appearance as the native orc race of Draenor, untouched by fell corruption and therefore never changing to the green color. This was the first look at Garrosh Hellscream. These orcs are very much in touch with their more grounded, primitive roots in the way that they're dressed, and because at this point we are so used to green orcs, their appearance is rather striking. Now,
Zuck,
Cataclysm
zuck.
is where we saw
Yeah.
more developments and changes to orcs. Most notably, we have the redesigns of Garrosh Hellscream and Thrall. Garrosh's redesign made him an icon. He looks
Yeah.
absolutely unhinged. The spiked rounded shoulders with that skull detail, his orange eyes, the chains on his pants with the skull belt. Incredible.
To be fair, I think this picture is kind of doing him dirty. It's definitely not his best. If you watch his artwork, to this day, I think it's one of the best depiction in, like, fantasy. In any fantasy settings whatsoever. I love Garrosh so much. He was such a great character. And unfortunately, he had to vanish in Mists of Pandaria, of all things.
Fitting for what he became, and
Panda
a great example
expansion.
of how the character
He got
models
Panda
could
Expressed.
have progressed if they didn't go down the Draenor route. I think Cataclysm's Thrall is another such example, although maybe he was
Nah, I didn't
already
like
a little
it.
too smooth looking, but not as bad as Draenor, honestly. His whole shaman look is really embraced here, moving away from the armored warrior aesthetic. He now wears the monk beads, which are like a signature for him, bright red and gold. He has these humble hooded robes with a chain belt and braced details.
I don't know why, I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm just, I never was. He looks more like a monk rather than a fighter. And I guess maybe kind of it suited him better because he is a shaman, but I don't like it. I like the later iteration a little bit better.
Agra, in the Cataclysm cinematic, where she appears with Thrall, shows the first signs of a generally more human
Humanization,
and smooth look
yeah.
that the orcs later take on. Garrosh Hellscream and Pandaria took
Oh
on
shit, there it is. I was literally talking about this. Look how crazy that is, brother. He used to look so good. Oh my god. And there's like the Siege of Orgrimmar picture too. I wonder if she'll show it. It was so good.
his most iconic look through official game art. This is Aura. The Siege of Orgrimmar, everything around that, it definitely felt very early Warcraft for me, and it had a level of grit, despite the pandas, that made the whole game and
Despite
atmosphere
the
of Pandaria
pandas.
darker and more true to the game's original essence. And before moving on to Draenor, we should actually take a look at the Warcraft movies.
The movie
depiction
was
of the
insane.
orcs.
I need
do
to
like
watch it.
them.
I watched
like
like
their
some of it.
general aesthetic and style. They do look very cool as the Maghar orcs, but one issue that I have with it that I don't know if anyone else did is that they felt like giants. I don't know if it's just me.
They should feel like giants. They are. They're ginormous. You just don't really know it. They actually toned them down with the years, and now they look like skimpy and weak. But like weak, like not John Wick, like literally weak. And it's so unfortunate because they're massive. Listen, human cannot wield an average orc weapon. That was like the entire shtick behind it. You cannot lift an orc hammer. It's massive. That's why Doomhammer is such a great weapon. That's why like all of these ginormous orc commanders are so like fearful, right? Like they're instill fear in your heart because they're so frightening. You can't even touch their weapons. Imagine what will happen to your body if you take a swing from them. That's why they were so good.
But something about them felt way too big. I don't particularly like Garona either because although I know she's
No,
half
Garona
orc,
looked
half
hella
Draenei,
weird.
to me she just looked like a real person in cosplay.
Yeah, I think they just ran out of budget, to be fair.
There was very, very little orc about her, and yeah, it just looks way too human. It felt very removed from an authentic orc look, and I'm not really getting much Draenei from her either. But despite other criticisms that I have of this movie personally, I think that overall they did do a good job of getting across that orc aesthetic, especially before the events of all of the wars and how they were. It seems to be sticking to their culture and overall aesthetic, and that was really nice to see. And then we come to Warlords of Draenor. Now this is actually a very orc-centered expansion, but it is also one that butchered their main aesthetic. And it feels so strange because on the one hand you have this fantastic game art that just feels like an homage to all of the orcs from the past and the
She's gonna
RTS
show the
games
trailer.
in their truest, most
Oh,
authentic
God.
form. This is very heavy metal. It is dark. It
The
is
trailer
real,
was
and
so
it is
good.
So Warcraft goes really hard. And to be fair, like some of the orc models, the special ones like Gul'dan, I think fit very well into the dark orc aesthetic as we
Yeah.
learned about it from the first RTS games. But then we look at the new character models, and this is where a lot of my problems with modern World of Warcraft started.
Here it
For these
comes.
models, unfortunately, we learn that you, the player character orc, cannot look like this. Not even close. We get a very smooth, fresh-faced look for them, almost kind of plastic, but overall, dare I say it, Disney. And
Yes! She said it. She said the thing we've been saying since the beginning of this video. Disneyfication of World of Warcraft. It's just disgusting, man. They're not even scary anymore. You look at them and you want to be their friend. You don't want to be their enemy. Yeah, WoD was absolute garbage. As an expansion, true. This is the expansion I started playing World of Warcraft in. But as an idea, it was a pinnacle. So let us live WoD as a canon event in our minds, but not as what we actually played.
If I write, I do mean more modern Disney with their more modern style of animation, because old Disney goes hard as... It's in the sense that it is a more immature aesthetic within this art style, and it's a direction that overall took the spice out of orcs. If you haven't already, which I don't know who hasn't, you guys can go and check out my Disneyfication of Warcraft video where I go more in depth.
We watched
on this.
that.
And generally they just look a lot softer and safer now. There's a very clear disconnect.
Bro, he looks like a Tokyo Ghoul character. What is that? He looks so emo. I mean, they even took Grom Hellscream Lush's locks and they make it weird. Like, why did they make it weird? It just, man, it's just so not fitting.
Between the official art for Draenor that featured the orcs and these new models. The orc females in particular took a massive hit where they just look so human. Like, you can take a look at this orc from TBC and then look at how she was changed in Draenor. It just doesn't feel like it belongs in the same universe as this. This was really the point for me where I felt like WoW forgot where the orcs actually came from and what they were. Heritage armor is one thing that I actually think was a positive addition, or at least it was a good idea, even if the ultimate designs of a lot of the sets aren't really my favorite. I do enjoy the idea of race-specific transmog that is designed with the roots and origins of a race in mind. Perhaps
Yes.
there's an element of it being over-designed here as well, but at least it had the air of the
There's no such thing as an over-design, just add more spikes to it.
past to it that made it connect the orcs to their former selves. It's a good concept. And I will say one other thing. One thing. The best thing that retail WoW did for orcs was the posture correction. I love that they allowed them to stand upright. This option, in my opinion, was absolutely the best choice. In fact, it should have been added much sooner. There was no reason for the orcs to be hunched down in this way. Look at how straight they stood even in Warcraft 3.
You can have
Horde
some
races
of
from
them.
Vanilla had this problem with posture that was totally unnecessary, and I think that the orcs standing upright was the correct call, and it
Trolls
is
just
probably
have
the best
back
design
problems.
choice that was made since Draenor. Shadowlands expanded on customizations for all races, including the orcs, and they added tribal tattoos for the orcs, which again, I think it was a good addition and one that definitely could have been added much sooner. I would have enjoyed to have the ability to give tribal tattoos to the classic models of World of Warcraft orcs. Later expansions gave us several Thrall revamps, which eventually put him closer
Yeah.
to his Warcraft 3 appearance. I think the armor overall looked revamped.
Yeah, nice revamp. Right here is cool. I mean, not cool, he's just like whatever. And right here is bald. Like, that's the revamp. Like, my homie's bald. Oh, and also he has some armor. Okay, I guess that's kind of cool. I really like this one. I really like this one because it's kind of, okay, he's warrior, but it's like very, very simple. It's very, very simple, but it hits. I really like this version of Thrall. This is doing a little bit too much in my opinion. I think that this was really, really great.
Switch eventually put him closer to his Warcraft 3 appearance. I think the armor overall looks good, and he's sort of bulky in a kind of an off-putting way. I think he looks more like the orcs from the Warcraft
simple
movie.
is better,
also
exactly.
looks a little bit like an off-brand version of himself. Or
He
like
looks Alliance. Like, that's the problem I really have with it now that I think about it. He just looks like he belongs to the Alliance. It just is very, very weird. Even if you don't pay attention to the Horde symbol here, you can't really tell. It all looks very humane. So I don't really know, or very human, sorry. It doesn't fit the Horde, man. It's just not it.
A different game, not Warcraft, featured Thrall
Yeah, the gold
as a
blue
guest
color,
character.
exactly.
Definitely looks good in the cinematics, but unfortunately the disconnect in the game is still visible, like something is not quite there for the overall look. The Mag'har, or Uncorrupted Orcs, are a playable race now, and while I understand what they did with allied races, I think that the Mag'har Orcs should have just been regular Orcs with their specific added customization options. But of course they wanted to go down the route of these allied races that kind of joined the Horde, or that you could unlock through reputation, I believe.
No, they wanted to mask it under the guise of having more content added to the game, and they should have just been customization. It's the same for, like, all the elf types, it's the same for, like, I don't know, troll types, like Zandalari and all of that stuff. It's just Blizzard masking extra content as, like, an addition into the game, instead of just making it baseline. It's stupid.
Today, Orcs and WoW in general are smoother around the edges. Remnants of their past can still be observed through things like heritage armor and some added customization options, but overall, the World of Warcraft has definitely softened them over time. Though their brutal and fiery essence has dwindled over the years, their legacy is unforgettable. Warcraft Orcs paved the way forward for more fantasy games to experiment with their race and develop various cultural identities or backstories that put them above the traditional idea of a mindless monster. This additionally helped adjacent races like the ogres, goblins, and trolls to gain their own identities in various fantasy worlds, including Warcraft. Orcs are a pillar of the old, brutal Azeroth that made so many of us fall in love with Warcraft, and their evolving aesthetic, along with their origins and lore, makes them some of the best orcs that can be found not just in video games, but in fantasy across the board. And that about covers it for my aesthetic historical deep dive into the Warcraft Orcs. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe.
We have. It was a great video. Again, guys, like, she's slowly starting to shape up as the best WoW content creator out there, and she doesn't even strictly, like, talk about World of Warcraft. I'm gonna leave you guys a link. Obviously, you should watch it for yourself. Give her a like and a sub. Truly phenomenal content creator as of late, but my god, it was so debilitating to see, like, towards the end there, how they did wrong to my boy Thrall. It's just tiring, man. I'm jaded. I'm jaded right now. It just feels so bad. We lost every single thing that made the orcs. They just look like human. And again, like I said when I started the video, it's a universal problem within World of Warcraft. Everyone looks more human now. Everyone lost their distinct features. And I'm just bummed out, man. Like, this should never be the case. We should go back to this. Literally put them in rags, cut off some of their limbs so they look cooler, and maybe place a blade or an axe instead of it too. That would definitely be great. I think everyone would say thank you, Blizzard, if they return to this rather than whatever the hell we have nowadays.